Started. Hello, everyone, and happy Earth Day. Thank you for joining us for an inside look at Virginia Tech's new climate action commitment. I'm Emily Vollmer, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator with the Virginia Tech Office of Sustainability. Today, I'm excited to host Denny Cochran and John Randolph, who will be speaking on the climate action commitment revision process, summarizing the goals it lays out and looking to the future. Denny Cochran is a 1970 graduate of Virginia Tech who currently serves as the Director of the Office of Sustainability in the Division of Campus Planning, Infrastructure, and Facilities. The Office of Sustainability is recognized as the clearinghouse for sustainability activity for the university, and he serves as the primary liaison for students and student organizations on sustainability matters. Denny was instrumental in the establishment of the Energy and Sustainability Committee in 2007 and participated in the development of the original Virginia Tech Climate Action Commitment in 2009, as well as the revision in 2013. Denny was a member of the Virginia Tech 2020 Climate Action Commitment Working Group and served as chair of the Energy and Sustainability Committee, which was directly responsible for navigating the new Virginia Tech Climate Action Commitment resolution through the university governance system for presentation to the Virginia Tech Board of Visitors in November of 2020. Also with us today is John Randolph. John Randolph has been a faculty member in Urban Affairs and Planning since 1979 and officially retired in 2013, but he continues to teach a class each spring. During his VT tenure, he was the director of the Virginia Center for Coal and Energy Research, the UAP department head, and the director for the School of Public and International Affairs. He chaired the original committee that developed the 2009 Climate Action Commitment and chaired the working group that developed the new 2020 CAC. The university has retained him to help implement the Climate Action Commitment with the title of Senior Fellow for Climate Action. Throughout the presentations and discussions today, we welcome members of our audience to submit questions through the Q&A function in Zoom. We'll have a portion of today's webinar dedicated to answering your questions. We're going to go ahead and get things started with an overview and historical perspective from Denny Cochran. Take it away, Denny.
Thanks, Emily, and good afternoon, everyone. Before I start, let me just take a brief moment just to highlight what's going on right now. This week is Earth Week, April 18 through April 24, and historically, students and student groups on campus have come together to plan and implement this incredible event. And despite all of the challenges that last year and this year has presented, they have done an absolutely remarkable job. So I want to congratulate all of our students and student groups for that. I also want to especially thank Emily because the Office of Sustainability recently has taken on more of a facilitator role in bringing these student groups together and helping them work as a team to come and develop and implement the schedule that we're going through this week. So I want to thank Emily for being on point with that. Also with us today is Nathan King. Nathan is the other member of the Office of Sustainability, and Nathan he's the backup today to make sure all of this works well. But more importantly, he's one of the ones that both he and Emily work with a lot of student groups. Okay, so let me just take a time out, ask Emily to put the first slide up, and I'll give a little historical perspective on the energy and sustainability programs and that, and more importantly, how we developed our initial climate action commitment many years ago. Back in academic year 2006-2007, the then undergraduate student representative to the Board of Visitors in November of 2006 made comments about how the university really ought to embrace sustainability and make it a priority. And to showcase why he felt that was important, he used a series of data and whatnot that he had gotten from surveys among students on campus that clearly indicated that sustainability was a priority. Back at that time, most of the senior leaders on campus, and I was one of them, we're scratching our heads trying to figure out what in the world is sustainability, what does it mean, how is it defined, and we're all over the map on this. But quickly, in response to the students' interest and the Board of Visitors asking for us to get in this, we went through the process to establish the Energy and Sustainability Committee. That was actually established essentially about 14 years ago. And on April the 30th, 2007, the University Council voted to establish this committee is part of the university governance system, but to show the university student population that this was important. And in response to their initially seeking to make this a priority, this is the only university committee that has 4 student representatives out of the 19 members. Those 4 students include 2 from the Graduate Student Assembly and 2 from the Student Government Association. So that's what makes this committee unique. 1 year later, during Earth Week, April 2008, then former President Charles Steger charged the Energy and Sustainability Committee to develop Virginia Tech's climate action commitment and an accompanying sustainability plan. But the important thing is he reiterated that it was important that we develop a commitment that was achievable and that was realistic. And he asked this committee to not only develop the commitment, but to get it through the university governance system to bring to the University Council in the spring of 2009, 1 year in the future. That was an incredibly tall order. It was because we didn't have anything to work from that was already developed internally. We used what was then called the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, a generic commitment that many universities had signed up to, but we used that as a start point. And we looked at that and said, gosh, we're doing this, we're doing that, we can do this, we can do that. And we went through all of that kind of review and decided that there were a couple things that made it unique and would be a challenge for us in the near term. So we developed our own. But I will just say many of the ACUPCC items were incorporated in our commitment and sustainability plan. 1 year later, ironically today, 12 years ago, April 22nd, 2009, Earth Day, John and I were proud to be in the University Council meeting that voted to recommend approval of Virginia Tech's climate action commitment. I will just say I can go back and remember this like it was yesterday, but the ironic thing to this was the University Council normally met at that time every 2 weeks in the Pamplin College of Business's auditorium on the first floor. Well, for whatever the reason, that was not available, and we actually had the University Council meet for the second reading and to recommend approval in the Squires Student Center in the Brush Mountain Room A and B. And the students packed that facility, and many of the senior leaders, the vice presidents, deans, and so forth, which typically would come in at the 11th hour, right before the meeting started, they come in and the place, all the seats are taken. And many of them stood in the background. But it was a demonstration that this was important to our students. On that day, Earth Day, 12 years ago, the University Council voted to approve. But then the president said, I want to do one more thing. I want to take it to the Board of Visitors to give it a lot more credibility. So on June the 1st, 2009, the Virginia Tech Board of Visitors reviewed the resolution for the climate action commitment, and they unanimously voted to approve it. And that was the defining moment that put sustainability and the climate action commitment on the radar screen for our university. The Energy and Sustainability Committee, as it was noted, John was the chair of the first one when we met for the first time in January 2008. I was also a member as at the time, the Energy and Sustainability Coordinator. Positions changed titles since. But John and I were sitting across the table when the then chair of the entire committee asked, how should we proceed with this charge from Dr. Steger? And I looked at John because I'd only known John for about 6 months, but I respected him. And I said, this guy can make this happen because of his knowledge, his relationships, and just knowing how to get through the university process. So we joined hands. And ever since September of 2007, John has been one of my best friends, not just a colleague. And together we brought this process through the Board of Visitors. Several years later, in May of 2013, the Climate Action Commitment was revisited by the Energy and Sustainability Committee. We made some tweaks, we made a few changes, and it only needed approval by the University Council since the original one had been approved by the board. The point is, that was another defining moment. And then 7 years later, in the fall of 2020, the university decided we needed to dust this off, take a fresh look. And again, thanks to students pushing the university in a positive way, in the fall of 2020, we were given the charge by the current administration to, in fact, review and revise our climate action commitment. And as John will show, it is a completely different approach. The first approach was more conservative. This one's bold and ambitious, and it gives us a compass, a charge, and a direction for the next decade. And so with that, I'm pleased to turn this over to John Randolph. John, thank you.
Well, thanks, Danny, for those kind words. It has been quite a journey, no doubt about it. And what I'd like to do is kind of bring this up to date. We actually started in the fall of 2019. I guess that would be good to note. But what I'm hoping to do is to talk a little bit about how we got here, but you know, really look more to the future. And so what I'd like to do is, you know, I know many of you who are on this are quite familiar with our commitment. And I'm not going to get into the weeds of that, but more look to the future. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the process that we had, what's in the commitment, how it went through governance, and then look really at what's going on in the last few months, both in terms of the financial analysis and overall what we are doing today toward implementation. The process really was a great working group of 25 members that Dwayne Pickney had selected with some assistance from student advocates and others that worked together for a long period of time and really operated by consensus. We met weekly for 6 months, at least weekly, and we set up 12 subcommittees that involved 125 members, including some of the working group members and a lot of staff members, and they met weekly from February to May, and it was really a dedicated group that really made this a university-wide effort. We really intended to do an elaborate community engagement program in the process. Of course, pandemic hits, and what are we going to do? But we relied pretty heavily on virtual means, obviously. Developed 10 really great videos to communicate what we were doing, and online surveys, and these 12 Zoom meetings were really effective. We engaged quite a few people, and we really got a lot of validation for what we were doing. So the commitment itself is, you know, has a vision and mission statement here, if I can get this up. You know, in the spirit of UPROSM, Virginia Tech will be a leader in climate action in service to our community, the Commonwealth, and the world, looking broadly. And then the mission, comprehensive mission, is to achieve carbon neutrality by changing our physical infrastructure, collective and individual behaviors, and educational mission, to engage everyone in creating a culture of sustainability and to achieve these objectives through just and equitable means. A mouthful, for sure, and very comprehensive in our overall approach. The commitment involves 15 goals. I'm not going to go through them in detail. The first 9 of which really deal with physical changes to achieve this initial goal of carbon neutrality by 2030, including 100% renewable electricity by 2030, really conversion of the steam plant to natural gas by 2025, which would eliminate coal on campus, existing building efficiency improvement, new buildings, particularly setting up the stage for after 2030 that they would be carbon neutral. Agriculture and forestry to be carbon neutral by 2030, would become a zero waste campus by 2030, have sustainable procurement, and with transportation to reduce overall transportation emissions by 40%, including particularly commuting to campus, an indirect emissions source that we included. But these physical changes weren't really this whole story. We really looked beyond this to be comprehensive. And these additional goals really went to look at the non-physical changes we had in mind, the most important of which was integrating this commitment into the educational mission through a climate action living laboratory, and really try to begin this process soon, to embrace climate justice as a core value, to address sustainable behavior and diminishing barriers to them, to implement this at a high level of the university with a high level of stakeholder engagement throughout, to really develop innovative ways of paying for what we need to do, and then ultimately to set up a stage after 2030 that we would work toward eliminating fossil fuels and any carbon offsets by 2050. Really a mouthful, but a very comprehensive approach that is pretty unique among universities, as we found. We took this resulting reports that we had in, I guess, July 2020 to the communications folks, and they produced a beautiful executive summary that really laid out in a slick document what we were after and what we intended. And the communications people have been very supportive of our efforts. So then it went, after we completed this, to governance, and the Energy and Sustainability Committee met early to kind of get this going. Unanimously approved this, first and second readings at one meeting, went to Commission on University Support, and then to University Council. Went to review by the Faculty and Staff Senates and SGA and GSA. But the governance showed unanimous approval, not a dissenting vote throughout. And we intended this to then go to the November Board of Visitors meeting in 2020. And right before the meeting, the board thought that a prudent thing to do in these times of budget uncertainty was to figure out how much this was going to cost. We did present to the Board of Visitors in November, but we stepped back from asking for approval and developed a financial analysis of the commitment. And this is really this fourth part of my talk here, to kind of update you on this financial analysis, which was really pretty incredible between December 2020 and March 2021. A group of about 8 to 10 met weekly, met over 20 times in this period to develop an integrated financial model for the climate action commitment. And on the left, we started with looking at the pathways we had identified for all the goals, for energy efficiency, renewable energy, converting to natural gas, zero waste campus, sustainable mobility, even the climate action living laboratory. And then with all of those pathways, to identify what the costs and savings would be. The one-time costs on the right here, the annual recurring costs, the savings that would be achieved by these investments, and then the overall net present value costs or savings for the entire package. And of course, we wanted to assess the greenhouse gas emission impacts as well. And so these next slides kind of review that process. there was one kind of level of variability that we had related to our need for developing 115 megawatts of solar electricity, some on campus, some off campus. And because of this variability regarding ownership or purchase of this solar, we developed 4 different scenarios. And all of these scenarios have the same metrics for all the other goals, but it's just for the solar one. The recommended one, and actually I should say the range of these was from all purchase, this all power purchase agreement or PPA on the left here, to have the university own all of this capacity on the right. And then in between, there are 2 hybrid cases for ownership of up to 15 megawatts of this 115 megawatts. And we recommended that the university perhaps own the initial construction of solar on campus, and then perhaps rely on the PPA, since no decisions have been made, but this came out as our recommendation. So this slide shows the metrics that we came up with for all these 4 scenarios, but we'll focus really on this hybrid one, which was our recommended. The capital costs and one-time costs, not just for the solar, but for all of the goals, we're talking about $42 million. I mean, we're not talking chump change here. We assessed in 2031, fiscal year 31, what the costs would be on an annual basis and the savings would be. The costs included the principal and interest costs for all the capital investments. And it showed the difference between these two, the $5 million net savings on an annual basis. And then our net present value came out to be about $25 million if we extended the costs and savings out to fiscal year 50. So the board was really interested in knowing what this all was going to cost. But what we showed was all that the university would save by moving in this direction. Of course, we looked at the greenhouse gas implications of all of this, and you can see our trying to achieve our goal here by 2030 of 0. Some reductions along the way, big reduction of electricity by 2030, which brings us down, but we still would depend upon carbon offsets to achieve about 50% of our emissions reduction in 2030. The electricity would account for about 40% reduction, or other efficiencies about 10%. So we'd still be dependent on carbon offsets at the tune of about $1 million a year. But those costs are all absorbed in the overall analysis. So for the board's sake, we kind of specified a path forward to basically saying we weren't asking for any money right now, that all requests would go through the annual budgeting process, and that these requests would have to compete for resources among all of the university priorities. That there would be utility savings that would help compensate, and certainly they showed very well that we would seek innovative financing. And then, because there's so much uncertainty in this field right now, that we needed to reevaluate our situation on a 5-year increment from 2025 to 2030. The board was also really interesting to say is what kind of add-on did all of this involve? And we looked back over the last 10 years and saw that the university has really done a lot in the last 10 years to really advance the university. And a lot of these measures that maybe would have happened anyway also supported the 2009 climate action commitment, our movement to LEED certified buildings, our 5-year energy plan, upgrades at the steam plant, our chiller upgrades, even the student initiated green RFP programs. were probably great things to do to advance the university, and they also supported the climate action commitment. But looking ahead for the next 10 years under the new commitment, the same situation exists, where there are a lot of things the university would do anyway that are part of the climate action commitment, including energy efficiency, of course, more LEED certified buildings, the compost facility at Kentland, for example. A lot of these would happen anyway. There were some new initiatives, particularly the solar development, that was kind of a new ask, I guess you could say, and some other areas as well, even this living laboratory. But the key takeaways were that the investments to advance the university that we did in the last 10 years would likely continue. But even with all of these new investments, the analysis showed significant savings to 2050. So what could the board do but approve it, which they did unanimously, 1 month ago today, actually. And thanks for the students who gave support on that day, but particularly for getting this all going in the climate strikes that occurred in the fall of 2019. Certainly a student-initiated effort. So in looking ahead, I really want to spend a little time talking about what we've done in the last month in terms of overall implementation. We've upgraded the greenhouse gas inventory, are starting to reorganize a little bit for their climate action. We've tried to develop a set of metrics that we can gauge our progress, and then a work plan to kind of take the first steps and organize around it. And then there's some actions really on the book that I would like to list for you. But the greenhouse gas inventory was a great product of Sean McGinnis and his students, who by February this year developed this new inventory that reflected the scope of our new commitment. And of course, the communications people stepped up again and developed a really nice, slick report, very graphical report that really indicates our first step in overall movement toward our commitment. You got to know where you are so you know how to move forward. The organization was just happened in the last couple of weeks here, and Marianne Abiziaco, who was hired about a year ago as a assistant vice president, I guess 14 months, anyway. But she's assumed the new title of assistant vice president for infrastructure and chief sustainability officer. And under her purview are utilities, including VTS, engineering and energy management, and Office of Sustainability, really giving some notice to this overall movement, particularly on the physical changes, but the Office of Sustainability is an important one, and she is all in on this. She's been a great support for it. As I mentioned, they kind of retained me to kind of help initiate some of the implementation with Marianne and kind of look at these other goals as well. I'm not a long-termer here, so just doing this for fun. And then we've developed a team that meets weekly now to really go through all of our set of initiatives. And you can see in a minute that we've been doing quite a bit. I've just mentioned some names here. There are others that I'm sure I've omitted here that are kind of part of our package. In terms of this, what we call this dashboard, it was quite initiated by the strategic planning people who wanted a couple of climate action commitment indicators in their dashboard, which made us kind of develop one of our own. And I'm not going to go through this in detail, but the idea is for each of the goals to identify dates and actions that we can kind of track along the time to see how well we're doing. So we've done this for each of the goals and dates to kind of indicate our overall progress. Goal 3 on the steam plant, goal 4 on existing building efficiency, goal 5 on new buildings, are kind of goals for the agriculture and forestry operations that we've been talking about, the zero waste campus. I mean, we've kind of done this for all of these. And again, I'm not kind of showing you the breadth of really what we have kind of taken on for all of these. And of course, this goal number 10, the Climate Action Living Laboratory, is the kind of the most interesting of the non-physical goals, particularly as it relates to the other non-physical goals as well, including climate justice and sustainable behavior. And then finally, the overall implementation process and the innovative financing. So we've, for all of these, kind of develop our, at least our schedule of time and action that we'd like to keep ourselves to move toward 2030. In addition, we've developed kind of a work plan to get more specific than just dates and goals and targets. And this is an example of what we've done for this goal 2, which is the 100% renewable electricity. You can kind of see, I'm not going to step through it, but the left column is basically looking at what we need to do. And we've tried to then identify who's going to do it or who's going to get involved in it and what its status is. So we can kind of track this for really all of our goals and kind of try to move forward and have people fill in the blanks here. And this extends it a little further. You can see we've done it for all the goals. And for many of these, there are a lot of still blank cells here and trying to figure things out. But it gives us a basis for really moving forward comprehensively with the overall commitment. Well, it's only been a month. And what's exciting is that we're not just talking about it, but trying to do some things. We're getting metrics into the strategic plan. The strategic plan didn't do much about sustainability, the current one. And so really based on the board's advice, we're working with them to get our metrics in their dashboard. Just about ready to submit a budget request, a climate action commitment budget request for next year. Partnering with Virginia Tech Foundation, meeting with them to look at the buildings we lease from them in terms of improving their efficiency and putting solar on rooftops. Developing a real plan for this phase 1 of solar for 2 to 3 megawatts on campus, and developing a request for proposals that will probably go out pretty soon on that. And then, of course, the Climate Action Living Laboratory is something a little harder to get off the ground. We've done a faculty survey, and we're meeting with the provost on Monday to kind of get his and his staff's perspective on this and their role in this as well. So time has been moving along. And on this Climate Action Living Laboratory, in trying to engage faculty, students, both in research and instruction, we've developed 4 basic objectives. One is basically to enhance our climate change and climate action education. Courses, majors, projects, research projects, just to kind of move this forward, to really integrate what we are doing physically on campus, the solar development, efficient buildings, and so on, to use them as hands-on experiential learning opportunities for the academic side, for students and faculty, and then to engage faculty and students who have a lot of expertise in what we're trying to do in our climate action changes in the physical side, knowing about efficient buildings, really looking at the latest research with regard to what we can implement on campus to work with this, the campus planning, infrastructure, and facilities staff on advancing these, and then especially on the strategies for implementing the non-physical commitments as well, including climate justice and sustainable behavior. And to do this, we're thinking of setting up a system to have faculty, staff, and students join informal kind of study groups on specific topics of interest that they can explore in kind of an informal way to get more of the entire university involved in this. So, finally, in realizing the commitment, we really have to remember that this, starting with the students in this time at Climate Strike Days, and the faculty who have joined in the working group, and subsequently in the staff that's joined in our subcommittees, and administrators who have really supported this. It's really a product of the whole university, but it's, successful implementation also has to be a real collective effort, and that's what we're really striving for. What is great, I think, is that so far, we've had unbelievable support, especially from the staff and the facilities side, but also knowing that faculty and students have the expertise and passion for this, we can tap that as well. So that's what I've got to share. I'm going to stop sharing the slides, and hope I didn't go too long. I think it probably we're within our bounds.
Yeah, thank you, John. That was great. So thank you to both of our panel members for providing such great insight into the climate action commitment. We're now going to move into the Q&A portion. Anyone can continue to send questions throughout this process in the Q&A function within Zoom. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I can kind of kick things off with a question for either Denny or John. Both of you can answer. How can people get involved in the implementation of the climate action commitment? I know you kind of touched, John, on those study groups that we're hoping to have for Goal 10, but what are some opportunities specifically for students, some for staff, and then also for members of the community to get involved?
Well, and again, we're trying to set this up, and I have to say one thing that we are really trying to push. Again, it's only been a month, but we know that the clock, the academic clock, is ticking along, and sooner rather than later, within a couple of weeks, people are going to be everywhere. So we're trying to really plant a foundation of this right now, so that we can, some of us can work over the summer on this, and then really pick this up well in the fall. We did survey a number of faculty, about 40 or 50 faculty that we had, and that was a start. We would like to also do some kind of survey of students too, to see how they may step forward. And these study groups, I think we expect to kind of hopefully develop organically, rather than assigning things to people, having people step forward with interest areas and see how that develops. Denny, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, for all intents and purposes, let's talk about students first. If students have questions, how can I get involved, and what are opportunities out there, I would encourage them to call or get a hold of our office, the Office of Sustainability. We have an office of 2 full-timers, Nathan King and myself, and we also have Emily Vollmer plugged in as well. We also have a graduate assistant, and that GA position we have had for quite a number of years. Michael Bell is holding down that one. So if someone has a question, how do I get involved? What are the organizations? The Office of Sustainability runs an internship program. It's an annual intern program. We are in the process of finalizing the hiring for people for next year. And typically in the spring, we reach out for more recruits. We have a total of 20 positions that we like to fill, and they serve on 4 different teams: an energy team, a food team, a waste team, and a water team. And a lot of these teams are connected with real world projects that we are, in fact, at the university involved in or need help with. So Emily, for example, was an intern with our office for 3 consecutive years. So talk about someone who understands it from the student perspective. She's it. Nathan is a 2-time graduate of Virginia Tech, both in the College of Natural Resources and recently joined us about 2 years ago as our sustainability program manager. Those 2 are absolute critical people and your best contacts for what's going on and how can I as a student get involved. Another thing is I chair the Energy and Sustainability Committee. That committee, as I mentioned, has 2 undergraduates and 2 graduate student reps. If you go as a student if you're a graduate student, you'd want to go to the president of GSA and you'd want to let that person know, I'm interested in doing this. And if you're an undergraduate student, same thing. The president of each organization formally nominates someone for every committee, not just ours, but we'll just use ours for now. And those nominations go to the Office of Policy and Governance in Burris Hall. And they then ultimately select who those students are going to be. Other members of the Energy and Sustainability Committee for faculty, I would go to the Faculty Senate. And if you're staff, go to the President of the Staff Senate and say you're interested in this because every year they're looking to populate the number of members in the Energy and Sustainability Committee. We have 4 faculty positions and we have 4 student or staff positions. And I would really encourage those that are really interested in this topic and want to get involved and do stuff, not just sit on the sidelines, but get out in the field and get involved. These are the kind of people we need, especially now that we're into the implementation. It's going to require a lot of heavy lifting by people who really care about the topic. So those are, I think, the things I would want to mention to you. John talked about the faculty survey. I think another thing is certainly John, and there's a number of faculty members on the E&S committee right now. You can go on the University Council website, scroll down to the committee, look at the membership, and call the people that are on them now. Dean Winnestorfer is our dean rep. You know, there's another one if you're in the College of Natural Resources. He's been a 2-time recruit for us and is a tremendous friend of our college, of our committee. But I would say that virtually what's nice about this operation is it touches every unit on campus, and all faculty, staff, and students and friends of the campus have a part to play. You know, the goal is to be inclusive and get us out, get all the talent we can as we get rolling. So encourage you to come to our website. We'll have that at the end of the briefing or the presentation, and let us know if you're interested, and we'll get you married up with the right people.
All right, this next question is from Leonard Smith in the audience. Does the dashboard show projections out to 2050 and beyond? If so, is this done in a probabilistic format? Does it take into account likely changes in climate and economics, as well as the progress and growth made by VT?
Well, let me address that. In that, you know, purposefully, we have kind of targeted 2030 for most of our goals, mainly because it's a little within the range of our view. This field is changing so incredibly fast, both in terms of technology, economics, and policy. And it's hard to anticipate what the future is going to hold, even, you know, in 2030. So what we have built into this is a 5-year review and update of our commitment, looking at the finances associated with it, looking at technologies. I mean, the policy is changing so fast that, you know, all of a sudden the US has a goal of 50%, you know, reduction of emissions by 2030. I mean, where did that come from? You know, just out of the, you know, well, we'll see how we can do toward that. But all of these are setting up a new world in which we've got to operate for this. But after 2030, we're hopeful that, you know, there'll be new technologies that can really help us drive down our reliance on carbon offsets, which I'd rather spend that $1 million a year on something else, I'll tell you, and will drive us toward our goal of being fossil fuel free by 2050. And so it's like, take this one step at a time, and in 5 years, well, I guess it'll be like 4 years now, we'll take another look at this and see where we are.
All right, this next question is from Devin Albert. Is all the renewable energy planned to be solar, or are wind and geothermal energy also in consideration?
I guess the answer is yes. We're really identifying sources that we can develop in the region. We're very limited in terms of wind in the region. Geothermal is a real opportunity, but it's not fully commercialized, particularly at the level that we would like. But we're looking at geothermal as a complement to building heating as we move forward, particularly with developments that are not on the existing system steam loop. And it gives us real opportunities to look at that. But the solar, we know how to do it. We have a pretty good idea of the costs. We've got a lot of vendors. We can move in that direction. We've got sites on campus. It's kind of an easy call, and the way the numbers work out, it looks like it's a very, very cost-effective way to go.
All right, this next question might be one that Denny can touch on a little bit. It comes from Rachel Spector. How will the university administration be kept accountable for implementation?
Well, the one thing that the Office of Sustainability has been doing over the course of many years is that we prepare each fall an annual report that looks at all of the goals of the climate action commitment and what have we been doing in each of those over the course of the last year. We also, and I would encourage you to go to the Office of Sustainability website. And when you get on the site, you can just scroll down about midway through and you'll see a series of rectangular boxes. And one of them talks about reports. One of them talks about the Green RFP programs, the program that the students have to submit ideas to advance sustainability on campus that support the climate action commitment. But on the right side, I think it's the middle box, it's that's where you can go to the reports. If you look at the annual reports, those reports, I think even more than ever, will be detailed analysis of where we are in regards to executing the goals of each one of those 14 points plus the 15th, which is way in the future now in the new plan. But I would also say that, and by the way, the sustainability annual report, which we do in conjunction with coordination from all over campus, that report goes to the Board of Visitors. And typically it goes to them in November. So this is a way for the Board of Visitors to track how we're doing. In addition to what John mentioned earlier about at the 5-year mark, we'll take a time out, in essence 2025, take a time out and see where we are and then make adjustments as well. So those are two things. I think the other thing I would mention is Virginia Tech is really a charter member of the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education's STARS program. STARS stands for the Sustainability Tracking, Assessment, and Rating System. And it's essentially a premier sustainability management tool that's used not only within our country, but also internationally now, that essentially looks at all sustainability operations on campus. And if you want to see how well you're doing in terms of measuring your progress, you're measured against a standard that is put together by peer institutions helping ASHE with the STARS protocol. And it includes everything from that are in 4 major categories. One being academics, which includes education, courses, research. It also, other categories, engagement, both internal to the campus and external to the community. And the external looks at what are we doing to help not only just our region, but the state and the nation. So that's pretty exciting. And then the other two categories, one is operations, which is where most of the facilities people, transportation and whatnot are located. That's the nuts and bolts, the people that run the day-to-day operations. In there is the greenhouse gas inventory that Sean McGinnis put together. And so you can track, because Sean's going to have his students doing this every year. How are we doing on reducing our greenhouse gas inventory? So one of the things that we did as a part of this climate action commitment working group operation was to put in place procedures that we can easily monitor our progress in a number of areas, and certainly greenhouse gases is one, our number of LEED buildings and all that's another. So that's a big one. And the fourth category has to do with planning and administration. It includes things like the climate action commitment, the strategic plan for the university, and does it include things which it will now from our sustainability programs, the climate action commitment, measuring the progress. What are we going to be looking at? Well, there's a number of things you can think of right off the top of your head. The point is that is on the university strategic plan dashboard. That's like your cockpit in an airplane. It's something you're always going to be looking at, and everybody's going to look at. So I think, quite frankly, and I should mention, the STARS program is incredibly comprehensive and must have involved around 65, 70 responsible parties, as we call them, all over the campus. John Randolph was one, Emily, Nathan, and I. There's 4 of them right here. And we're gathering all this data for all these topical areas. And at the end of the day, they go into the STARS report. And you do this every 3 years. It's almost like a sustainability accreditation program. And that is a way you can measure not only your progress against a standard, but you can also see, how am I doing in regards to the other peer institutions, not only within the state, but within the country. So I can sit down and say, gee, in the Atlantic Coast Conference, how's North Carolina doing? How is Georgia Tech doing? How is Clemson doing? How is Duke doing? How are we doing in comparison to that? And so I'm pleased to report that not only was this last year incredibly intense under John Randolph's leadership to get the climate action commitment through from the initial planning all the way through university governance review and Board of Visitors approval. But at the same time, our office was championing the gathering of data and information for our 5th sustainability tracking and assessment rating system submission. And I'm pleased to report those results came out on the 18th of March, 4 days before the climate action commitment was approved by the board. Talk about a 1-2 punch. And on the 18th of March, we received our another gold rating, our 3rd one, but it's the highest point total we've ever received. And it stands as the highest score in the state of Virginia. We've had that distinction for quite a while. And then it's also the highest rating in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So those are pressures that make sure we're doing what we need to do against a national standard. But keep in mind, the climate action commitment is focused and targeted right here. And that's something that we report on every year. And quite frankly, that I'm sure will be the tool that we use moving forward to show accountability to not only internal constituents, but to the public. Good question.
Thank you, Denny. We have another question that came in asking specifically how alumni can stay connected and involved in the implementation process.
Well, I'd say it's kind of up to them, but I think part of it has to do with communications and, reaching out. One, in our Goal 14 on innovative financing, we really look to, advancement people and donors to the university, which are mostly alumni, to kind of, step up. And so to actually include a marker for, climate action campaign or donations that would come from alumni. That's one level. But I think that, really working with the alumni relations people as well, when alumni speak, when students speak, the university listens, but also when alumni speak, the university listens as well. And as we can engage them in kind of support of our activities here, I think all the better in getting the support from the university.
If I could just piggyback off of what John said, I think a couple things are important. If you think of advancement, how do you get that group in the loop? Well, it consists of certainly those reaching out to potential donors and alumni and whatever. It's also the Alumni Relations Office and the communications that they have, events they plan, and all of that throughout the year. But what sometimes gets lost is university relations is a part of this as well. And university relations has been joined at the hip with us from start to finish in not only publicizing the documents that John Randolph showed in his presentation, but also in updates to the university community with specialized articles. For example, when we rolled out our comprehensive waste management plan in January of this year, complete update and overhaul of the previous one, they went to bat for us and put together a super document for us same way. But we rely heavily on the university relations people. So they love feedback. The alumni relations people love feedback. And wouldn't it be nice if the advancement folks would sit back and say, gee, there's a lot of interest in this stuff from alumni. And you may have the opportunity, or we may see the opportunity for that area of advancement to say, well, we're contributing to the football team, we're contributing to the college in the various academic fields. What about somebody who wants to donate funds so we can plant more trees on campus for carbon sequestration in addition to beauty? What about buildings? What about upgrades in energy efficiency? My heavens, I would have bet you'd have a lot of folks out there that are in the technical field saying, the company I work for could do a whole lot of neat things there. So I think there's to reduce energy. So there's a number of ways, but the key is just stay involved. And clearly the Sustainability Office, now under the leadership of Marianne Ibaziki-Yako, she's also on the Energy and Sustainability Committee as well as a ex officio member as I am. These are all places to touch. These are touch points for alumni to get with us. And we would be happy to work with them. Good question.
All right, this next question was identified as one that maybe we could discuss a little bit more after the meeting and some one-on-one conversations, but I figured we have a little bit of time now that we could cover it a bit. It talks about the sustainability dashboard and the metrics that we're tracking. And the question is, have the studies that you've done so far been done in a way that simplify the identification of what will be updatable in terms of climate drivers, economics, and regulation? So it's kind of looking at those outside factors and how they impact the metrics that we're looking to update.
Well, I think that's a really good question. And, it's really relies on getting people involved who really have expertise and are versed in these things. I mean, I teach my renewable energy class, and boy, I'll tell you, every week I give like news of the day for developments in this area in sustainable energy, and it's really hard to keep up. It's just moving so fast. So we just have to gather our wits, maybe study groups. I mean, there's some key issues like carbon offsets. There's so much going on just to be knowledgeable of the changing, not just technology, but the changing policies regarding to this energy storage. It's just moving so fast. So we just have to have a good group of people that can kind of communicate what they know about what's going on, how we can take advantage of it.
All right. This next question is for either of you. Which goals of the climate action commitment excite you the most? What are you most looking forward to in the implementation process?
Well, I think the one that excites me the most is number 2, the 100% renewable electricity. It's a fairly unique goal among universities. we expect to show. It's going to be visible. It's going to be easily integrated into the educational mission. We'll see solar on rooftops, some ground mount on campus in the area. So it really will be a visible representation of what we're trying to do. But it is also gives all kinds of opportunities on the educational side for students to understand how to integrate renewables into the electric grid, the Virginia Tech electric grid, even doing it on research, part of our development with smart grid that's going on. It really has a lot to say about it. Also is a great way for the university to save money, as we've found out. It's that one and the Climate Action Living Laboratory are tops on my list.
Yeah, I would echo what John's saying. I remember when we put solar panels on top of the Perry Street parking garage, and all of a sudden now when you turn the corner at Price's Fork and West Campus Drive, you can see it. It's there. And it's right at one of the gateway entrance points here on the campus. And this small but first step in the solar energy arrangement, I think, is going to be cool, because it's going to put solar panels on a number of buildings on campus at, again, strategic points that people can see. And I think that's key. I think what also is key is kind of buried here. John mentioned about a number of projects and things that were already underway that we could capture and showcase to the Board of Visitors. Well, look, we're doing a lot of this stuff already. But one project that has been in the making for, I'll bet you, almost 2 decades is finally coming to fruition, and that is the multimodal transit facility. This small little 2-story building to be positioned right between the south entrance to the Perry Street parking garage and currently where Perry Street is, okay? This little 2-story building, okay, will serve as the hub for bus transportation traffic to and from campus in the future. One of the parking lots to the west of the Perry Street parking garage, a portion of that will be turned into a bus loop for buses coming in from the west side of campus. And on the opposite side, kind of parallel to the Perry Street as we see it now, between that and Goodwin Hall will be another loop. And that will be the entrance point for bus traffic coming in from the east side of campus. The idea is to get the buses that are currently lined up in front of Burris Hall out of there for efficiency reasons, safety and everything else, noise, pollution, you name it, getting all of that out of there and flipping it on the opposite side of the main academic area over on Perry Street. And then the entire Perry Street footprint, put the footprint from Stanger Road and Perry Street by the Surge Building by Durham Hall, that'll become a 2-lane roundabout. And then you go to the opposite side, all the way down at Perry Street when it intersects with West Campus Drive, that whole area will become a primary pedestrian and bicycle traffic area. And buses will come in from the sides, drop students off, they pick up a bike, they walk, they get a bike share, whatever they have, okay? And all of that will serve as kind of the hub for that. And that's right in the middle of one of the key parts of campus, which I think is really going to be amazing. That's a partnership project with the town of Blacksburg, who was able to get a grant from both the federal side as well as the state side through their connection with the Metropolitan Transportation Arrangement, whatever it's called. And us, we're the users, just like they own the BT buses, and yet we have 96% of the ridership and pay to help operate that. All of the bus drivers and whatever that operate those buses won't have to go to the, I guess it's the, let me think, it's the, I guess, west side of Blacksburg, where they are right now to get the bus for their time of duty, but they can all do it right there out of the building and the hub that we have coming on board. 2 years from now, that building will be finished. They broke ground about a week ago, and that's really cool. So if you ask me what I'm jazzed about, I think some of these initiatives that are finally coming together that's going to really help the transportation office and all of us on campus. But then the other one, it goes back to what John's saying. And let me take it from a different perspective. Goal number 10, making the Climate Action Living Laboratory, is an opportunity to bring the academic community and the operation community together in so many ways. But the most important thing, it builds teamwork, and it builds a campus that's special. So many campuses, the academic guys are doing their thing, the operation guys are sort of doing theirs, and athletics doing something else, all that. But here, this is an opportunity to bring all of this together in not just sustainability, but I can see this being a spinoff and a model for so many others. So as John indicated, the Division of Campus Planning, Infrastructure and Facilities, CPIF, okay, and its Vice President, Chris Kiewis, he and his team have been an integral part of the plan, and they're an integral part of the implementation. And to be able to say to faculty members, if you have students that want to do research in these areas, this is what we need help with, and this is what we're doing right now. If you want to take advantage of having your students learn, here's what we can do to help them. If we need help on research, figuring out what's the best way to go, we can reach to the academic community, and they can provide expertise there. So it's a tremendous opportunity to bring so many parts of this campus together in a topic that affects everybody. And so for me, I think goal 10 is the special one, plus just seeing a lot of the buildings and all of the physical stuff that can, showcase how committed the university is to this. But at the end of the day, being bold and saying carbon neutral by 2030, that puts a stake in the ground. That basically gets everybody's attention. And I'm pleased to see that a number of people participating in the webinar are from the operational side. They'll be responsible for implementing and maintaining a lot of initiatives that come out of this initiative.
All right, this next question is from Rebecca Heth, and it's actually about the living laboratory. She was wondering if we could go into further detail about what it is, what it'll look like, and how it'll work. And it might be helpful, John, if you share one of your slides that maybe broke down more of the details of it, if you still have that available.
Let me try it without the slide, maybe. It's still a little under development, a work in progress, and the concept initially started with the desire to look at the physical changes on campus and to see them as basically an opportunity for students and faculty, for experiential learning, to integrate it with the research projects, maybe get some enhanced funding for it, both on the instruction and research side. And that was kind of where it was born, but it's developed a little bit more in thinking about just looking at our overall curriculum on campus and how we can enhance our attention to climate action and climate change. There's a lot going on campus. One of the goals might be, I think in our dashboard might even include it as maybe developing a minor in climate change and action, climate management. And I've even put together with existing courses, it isn't very hard to do that because we are offering so much as it is. So that enhancing the kind of curriculum programs that we have in this area is an added objective. But really to implement some of these issues, we've got to engage people who are smart and knowledgeable about the uncertainties that how are we going to be carbon neutral? There's a whole developing field in that area. And, what of the available carbon offsets are real and what are not? So we need expertise to really assist us in making the right decisions as we move forward. And there's no one more knowledgeable than our faculty and our students who are researching these areas to get them involved in the process. So, saying that, it's still a little unclear how to move forward with this. I've tried to, with this faculty survey, to identify faculty who would like to establish kind of a core group of faculty to think through some of these issues. I've also thought of asking college deans and department heads to become department or college collaborators in our climate action living laboratory to gain their support and expertise. So there's a lot still to be developed on this, but I think some huge amounts of opportunity. There's so many faculty and students on campus who are so dedicated to this field that we've got really so much chance to engage them in the process.
If I can add one other thing to that, because I'm going to just mention the Office of Sustainability is physically located in the Sterrett Center, which is on the southeast corner of the campus near Fleet Services, behind Lane Stadium, kind of over near the police department, that area. But one of the things that we have in our building is the Office of Energy Management. And the Office of Energy Management typically has had a number of interns, both undergraduates and graduate students. And those people have been plugged in to do a lot of the grunt work to analyze day-to-day operations in the energy arena, but also when it came to our STARS reporting. Let me even back it up further. When it comes to our annual report where we measure the greenhouse gases and we prepare our annual report with that section clearly being one of the predominant ones. Over the recent years, we've had a number of really smart students participate in not only the analysis work, but also, with the putting together the narrative that moved right into being that section of the climate action, the sustainability annual report. So it's an opportunity for the students to not only get in here and learn and in real world applications, but to essentially help us put together the annual report that gets the visibility that I mentioned earlier, clean up to the Board of Visitors. So, for those that I don't mean to get out in front of Steve Durfee, who's our new campus energy manager, and our energy engineer, Lowell Jesse, but I know both of them, I'm sure, are very interested in wanting to get some real fireball students, especially on the engineering side, interested in wanting to help them in those regards. And there's others like that around. So the point is, if you've got an interest, the issue is not to sit on it. The issue is to who do I need to go to ask for how can I get involved? This is to me, one of the fun parts about this job is to being able to, figure out how can I align something that's going to ultimately result in somebody not only learning from the campus perspective, but also parlaying that into something that would be useful as an employee. I would mention one other thing that's really cool. I may not have it perfect, so bear with me. But this new huge building that's going in near Donaldson Brown between the residency hall areas and the town of Blacksburg, I don't remember what it all stands for, but it's the CID LLC building. It's a living learning center for students in the creative side of the house. I guess, graphic arts, architecture, I guess, all of that. But the thing that was so cool was during the design of the building, they reached out to a number of students and had the students provide their ideas and input with the common areas in the building. Since this is going to be a residency hall in addition to an academic facility, it was fantastic. This is kind of, to me, what never happened, I don't think, up until recent, to have undergraduate students helping in the design of a new building that's going to be for students. So to me, this is the kind of opportunities that I see the senior leaders of the university embracing. That's completely new, in my view, from what I've seen before, and that's exciting.
All right, it looks like this next question is going to be our last one, unless anyone else wants to submit any final questions through the Q&A function on Zoom. But Denny and John, both of you mentioned being involved in the creation of the original climate action commitment back in 2009. What were the major differences between those two experiences, and what were the biggest changes between then and now?
Okay, I'll kick that one off because it was, well, night and day. The similarity is that we, at each period of time, we had a university president who was very committed to this. But take a step down from that, and this was all pretty new at the time in 2009. And there are a lot of issues on the agenda of a lot of the people involved at the time. And, you know, we did, I think, a really good job of laying out a very unique climate action commitment for the time. But to move forward on it, we met with a fair amount of resistance, I should say. Some even some of the higher levels were a little skeptical of what we were doing. And so it was with some difficulty that we really got their attention. We made some real inroads over time, and some of those officials came to realize that this indeed was in the best interest of the university. And so we did make a lot of progress. But fast forward to today, or you know, even when we got started a few years ago, the situation's totally different in terms of the receptivity. I mean, from the president on down, this is something that I think the whole university has grabbed onto, and especially in the facilities world, this campus planning, infrastructure, and facilities. The commitment level there, which is obviously critically important for these physical changes, is complete. They're all in on this. And that really is a totally different situation than we had 12 years ago. And that's really one of the most exciting parts of where we are today.
I would echo back in 2008 when we were given this charge from the president during Earth Week to come up with our own climate commitment. The key part was it needed to be achievable. So it had to be realistic. We couldn't just flip a switch and go from coal to solar immediately. We had to go through steps. But I think the biggest thing was it took the president top down to get people's attention with a directive to the brand new E&S committee. We had barely met. And all of a sudden we have been given this incredible responsibility. There's no blueprint that we're building from that's here in the campus. We're starting from scratch almost. And to put all this together and to bring it through university governance, which takes a semester, and to have it ready to go before the university council in 1 year was a Herculean request, to be honest. And because of, I think, relationships and a willingness and on so many key people to do something, there was a challenge of, well, most people would think we couldn't pull this off, and we did. And we did it by having the Energy and Sustainability Committee start the following Monday. I'll never forget it, April 25th. We had our meeting, April 26th. And it was the last Energy and Sustainability Committee of the semester. We're getting ready to break. And all of a sudden we've got this charge, and normally committees do not work during the summer. And for us to be able to have this ready to go, we'll need the spring semester to get it through university governance. So it had to be done essentially by the middle of the fall. So we put it together by working straight through the summer. And we had a lot of students. We had a lot of, I think, 75 different key leaders. In addition to all the students, were helping us through the summer on something we'd never done before. So 2009 for me was very special because we proved that we could pull a rabbit out of a hat and do something that was pretty incredible for its time and to get it through governance. But we had at the top, as John was saying, the president directed, let's do this. And again, the students were excited about it, and that was great. And when we needed that nudge, but this time we've already made a lot of progress. Back in 2009, we didn't have any LEED buildings. Those, for those that don't know, LEED is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And it's really the green building program. We now have 36 buildings either done or under construction or in the pipeline in design. And all of those now, the requirement is they will all be LEED Silver or higher. And so these are things that we didn't have to overcome. Plus, we took a bold approach this year. The president said, this is what we want to do. And Dr. Pinckney, the senior vice president and chief business officer, who we all report to, who then reports to the president, he basically got this working group together. We convinced John Randolph to go at it again and brought him in because I knew, quite frankly, this was only going to work with John doing this. And for myself to work the admin piece, and then all the other stuff would fall into place. And it did. And we were able to build off of, again, the president saying, let's do this. Dr. Pinckney saying, we're going to do this. My boss, essentially, Chris Kiwas, vice president for CPIF, said, we're going to do this. And we all joined forces. It wasn't the inertia to get over that initial part of we can do this was already done when we started this one, which I think was a big difference. And so this is a much bolder approach. And we've got buy-in from the Board of Visitors with all the financial analysis work that John and Marianne Ibazikiako helped pull off. And it actually is going to save us time because it allowed us to think through how do we get out of the blocks quicker on implementation. So that's another advantage to it. Took a little extra time on the front end, but we've got buy-in all over the place. So
there's one more difference from then and now. The world has changed. We are in a situation right now where this existential threat is staring us in the face. You know, the president's got this international summit today. The level of attention that corporations, banks, investors are putting on this, this is a global movement. And we just want to ride that wave. We want to pick that up and do our part. And it gives us a great advantage to have that wave moving in our direction. But I think we're in a good position to take advantage of a lot of opportunities that are going to come up in the next few years.
All right, so we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to make sure I gave you both a chance to kind of give any final remarks, closing comments, anything like that.
Well, it's an exciting time, I think, for this initiative, and primarily just what we've said, the fact that we have kind of the structure of the university and the key people being really committed to this. It's not just the students pushing this. We've got staff really moving forward on this as well. And I think that's really the most exciting time. We've shown that we can do this and do this by not only, some strategic investment, but by saving a lot of other economic resources that we have available for other things in the university. So it's really a win-win. And I think one of the biggest advantages is kind of the reputation of the university is enhanced by our moving in this direction. So it's really an exciting time, and I really hope that we can engage as many students and faculty and staff in the university to play a part of it.
I would, I guess I'm in a position where I can reminisce a little bit here as we close it, as we close the webinar. Before I forget this, I want to just say thanks again to Emily for putting this together. Thanks for Nathan to support. And thanks to all of the listeners and viewers that participated and provided us with questions. I think one of the things that I have seen is you don't have to be a technical expert to work with and lead and help and assist technical experts. I came into this office as the first energy and sustainability coordinator, having under the strangest of circumstances. I've never had it where my boss, who I'd only known for a couple of months, looked at me and basically voluntold me to lead this effort. And I've seen it go from nothing. Again, I mentioned that I couldn't even spell sustainability. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew how to help the university and get things through the process and to work with people. I have made many relationships, but I didn't know this sustainability field. But I met John Randolph at a little tiny restaurant in downtown Blacksburg. It was called the Pita Verde back then. I forget what it's called now. It's a lot nicer. But I walked into that meeting, or John says, let's go to lunch. I didn't know John hardly at all. And we developed a relationship over a club sandwich, I think, that I will never forget. And against all of the people saying there's no way this is going to work, it's going to be a fad, it's going to fizzle, we've seen it balloon into something that really is special. Teamwork for me is the name of the game, and you can see it on steroids with our sustainability program. There's something in here for everybody, and it doesn't matter whether you're on whatever side of the fence you are on any of this stuff. There's something in there for everybody. And to me, my job was to get everybody we could find on the bandwagon, get some victories. They started small. Sustainability Week, this is back in 2007 in the fall. It's a model program for the state of Virginia now. The Tree Campus USA program is now called Tree Campus and Higher Ed or something. We've been a charter member since day one. And with all these victories, other people got on the bandwagon. And it led to so many things like the Green RFP program for students and getting a number of governors' environmental excellence awards. So we're known at the state level. John mentioned reputation. The STARS program has put us on the national radar screen. I could go on, but it's all because of people working together on something that is so important and has a place for everybody. So from my perspective, I couldn't be happier, quite frankly, than to sit here and look at where we are, and we're positioned to not only take us to the next level, but to exceed expectations once again. Let me finish by just saying this. In 2009, John and I were sitting in his office, and we were putting, at the time we had 12 points in our then climate action commitment. And I remember John taking out a piece of paper and he wrote an X and Y axis. And on the horizontal axis, it was level of commitment by the university. And on the vertical axis, it was resources. And we went through each of these 4 quadrants. John said, I use this little picture when I'm in my classes, a number of occasions. So he's got this little X and Y axis. He says, if you've got commitment, but you don't have resources, you're in the lower right corner and you don't want to be there. And if you've got no commitment and no resources, that's the worst of all worlds. That's in the lower left-hand quadrant. And if you're in the upper left quadrant, you've got resources, but no university commitment. We're sort of waffling over there. But the goal is to be on the quadrant on the upper right, when you've got commitment from the university leadership, faculty, staff, students, and resources provided, you can then be in the best position. And with that, we came up with this phrase, we want to be a leader in campus sustainability. If you're going to do it, get in there to win it. That, you've heard all that. But I'll never forget saying, bingo, that's it. And that being a leader in campus sustainability became our first goal. And it doesn't have a whole lot of other things to it other than there's our slogan. And it stood with us for 14 years. And I was so thankful that John grabbed it and packaged a little bit more fancy words to it on this go around, because clearly that's what people read. The first thing they read here is, in this one, we're going to be carbon neutral by 2030. Board of Visitors people looked at us that are technocrats from high energy positions in places all over the place. And they looked at us and said, how are you going to do that? We can't do that until 2050 or 2045. Kind of show us. That was part of the financial analysis and all that drill. But the thing was, at the end of the day, they were on the bandwagon. And whether they were alums or friends or whatever, they were on the bandwagon. So what's different now is the leadership, top to bottom, in key positions are on board, as John indicated, and the fact that the Board of Visitors are on board from day one, and we've got students on the bandwagon, we got all kinds of cool things going, and we've got a history to build off of. We can do this. So to me, we have a commitment. The commitment of the university is to make this go, and not only make it go, but to make it go well, and to be a show place for not only what we're doing here on campus in the state, but for the country. I can tell you, parents and prospective students understand sustainability is a part of our culture, and it's a part of what we do. It's important. It's influenced people that come here. But can you imagine what it's going to be in 10 years? And on this journey as we go from here to there, it's going to be nothing but better. So I appreciate everybody. There's a place for all of you on this team, and we want everybody to be a part of it. So I didn't mean to preach, but I did mean to leave you with a little battle cry of, you know, I spent a lot of time in America's Army. I don't feel like General Patton by any means, but I do feel sometimes you need to get up on your soapbox and remind people we've done a heck of a job to get from where we were to here. And John, you're it. I mean, you are so much a part of this. And Emily and Nathan and so many others, you're the future. It's your job to keep it going. So thanks for everybody being here. Thanks, Emily, again for this. And thanks for all the viewers and great questions.
Thank you, Denny.
And enjoy the rest of Earth Week.
Yeah, definitely. Nathan's going to share his screen and show some additional resources and ways to get in touch with us. But I just want to say thank you to our panel members and to the members of our audience for participating in today's discussion on Virginia Tech's new climate action commitment. This event has been recorded, and you can reach out to our office to receive a copy of the recording over the next few days. I encourage you all to check out the other events happening today and throughout the rest of the week as we celebrate Earth Day and Earth Week. The full calendar of events is on our office's website. Thank you all again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Emily and Nathan.
Thank you.